All right, so distributing plugins with Satis. I like to talk about these topics today. I'll tell a bit about me, the benefits of using Satis, and I'll give a short demonstration about how to create a basic plugin, install Satis, and how to distribute that plugin. Um, so this is me. I've been, well, using computers since I was a kid. Starting off with a Commodore 64, doing basic, and I've been into PHP since 2002 professionally. I've been at it before that, I think. I started using Cake when I started working at Center Data since last year in February. Center Data is a research company that does surveys among people. For instance, with COVID, they were asking how people are doing, how they feel about things, and how they will manage. And they will gather all that data and put it in a big cluster of databases, and researchers can then use that to do their reports on. And we facilitate that at our staff. I like to do camping trips. We have an old constructum caravan. I do sing a bit, and I play double bass, the big doghouse, the bull fiddle, in a band called Moonshine Brigade. You can check us on Spotify, Instagram, if you like Johnny Cash or Americana. So on with the presentation. So when I arrived at Sender Data, we were still using Cake 2. We were using submodules for plugins to keep track of our versions. We wrote down the dependencies of each plugin in README files. And in each project, you really didn't know or kind of know if another plugin would reside and if you could use that. So you wouldn't know if you could extend that or call upon that, and that would result in duplicate code, which is a thing that you don't want because it's hard to maintain. Forks would be made if business rules would differ for different projects. So one project could require a rule X, another would require rule Y, a fork would be made, and well, it's hard to maintain. I mean, it works, but it's not easy. So we moved from Cake 2 to Cake 4, and that gave us the power of Composer. Really nice. We wanted to make that work for our plugins, and that's how we came to Satis. So Satis is a static composer tool which will dip into your Git repositories and will serve them just like Composer would, and you will get your dependencies with it. So you can declare your dependencies in your plugin. Like you can say, okay, this plugin requires other plugins to be present because you rely on them to function. That's the big advantage of Satis. So you can really make Composer resolve that dependencies for you. So we took a more modular approach, keeping things more solid, like single purposes, having more classes doing stuff like, okay, this is only designed for this, and if you have another purpose, just create another plugin for that purpose instead of mixing things too much. The downside is that you get more plugins and more fragmentation, so it's hard to keep track of your inventory. So these are the commands that I use to create a plugin. I'll share my console now. Let's see, this is not it. There you go. So we're going to initialize a Git repository. So I've prepared a bare Cake 4 app, and we're just going to initialize it. I hope you can read my console. And after that, we're going to initialize a submodule in that workspace. And submodules I only use for development purposes. And to develop a plugin, I need to have some kind of a cake environment to see that it works. So that's how we do it. We've created it, and now we're going to bake it. So this is just a plain simple bake command to bake a plugin. And the plugin's purposes, well, it's not really a purpose this time. I'm just going to do a simple hello world feature. So this added the plugin to the composer file for the autoloading. I've run the migrations, the good migrations, and I'm going to make the model just for purposes so to be complete. Now I'm going to write one line into the database, and I'm going to fetch that line into a command. And I'm going to bake the command here. And to show you what it's done, it's going to dump the contents of one line in the database. And this is the command to do so. Let them eat cake. So that was the line that's in the database. Now we know that the command has run and it works. So what does that look like? Well, let's give it a run. Oh. Yeah. This is the wrong project. Come on. What are you doing? Ah. Okay. Well, that doesn't work. Okay, let's do it like this then. All right. So we made the plugin called CakeFest, and it's here. And I have added a composer file in the plugin. There you go. And for demonstration purposes, I've added a CakePHP helper. The plugin made by Mark, it's really nice, by the way. And this dependency will be resolved if I'm going to use it in another project, which I'll show you later on. So this is the way that you can define your dependencies in the plugin's composer file. And to include the it's really hard, man. I have a layover in my screen. It's really no, that's not it. Having a hard time to watch the screen. There we go. So yeah, I have to add the plugin I want to use. That I want to use like this, and it says app load plugin, and there we go. And here we will say I want to have the IDE helper. Can I use this now? Yeah. Finally. Okay, sorry, I had some difficulties using my screen while presenting it. Let's see if it works this time. So I want to close this project and I want to add. Yes, that's better. Finally. So let's see if I did it right. Plugins. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, this is the command that I made. Oh, it's behind. That's funny. Yeah, this is it. So here you see I'm just going to fetch the first row and I'm going to dump it to the screen. All right, so this is the important part that you have to add the plugin. This will do the same as your application. Oh, I'm having a typo, I think. Add plugin. I knew it was wrong. There you go. So this is it. So instead of adding this in the application, you can add this in your plugin. And every time the plugin, in this case, the CakeFest plugin, is used in a project, the other plugin that I'm depending on, the IDE helper, will be initialized. And that's automatically. So this is what helping you. It's really a nice feature to do so. So back to the console. And so we've seen it works. We're going to add it and to Git. And here's another important step to be conscious of. You have to add a V. So you're going to tag it, make a version of your plugin, and you have to prefix it with a V or version. Otherwise, Composer won't recognize it. It won't show in your Composer, but you have to have this V. You can type what you want here to describe your version. And then after that, you can push your code and push your tags. This is also important to push your tags. If you don't push it, you won't have a version in your repository. So I made a public repository on GitHub. Here it is. This is the code that I've just submitted. Normally, in a company, we would push this to our private repositories for internal use. But in this case, I wanted to present it so you can see what's happening. So you can push it to your GitLab, to your Bitbucket, or wherever your version control is. You can push it there and tag it. You can see it. It has a tag. It's version 1.0.0.1. All right. So after that, we're going to install Satis. And Satis is an open source project that you can use to distribute the plugins internally for your own purposes among your own developers for your projects. So I'm going to back to the command line. I'm going to install that. This is the command to do so, and this will install the project. In the root file of the Satis directory, you will have to create a file called satis.json, and in it you will have to declare your repositories. Needless to say, Satis should have access to those repositories, or else it will not build. And Satis.json looks like this. It's a common JSON file, just like Composer. And you have to list your repositories like this. Next step is to build your sources. For each version, it will make an archive, a tar archive. So each tag that you will make will be published on the server as a tar archive and will get its own backup, if you will. This is the command to do so. This is a static thing, so you have to run this each time that you have a new version of your plugin. Oh, this is nice. So each time that you have, come on, yeah, that's true. Yep. Yep. So each time that you have a new version of your plugin, this command should be run, else it will not be listed in your plugins. So yeah, I'm a bit behind here. That's why it's giving errors. Let's debug that on the fly. We have Satis. Here is the Satis file. And I made a typo here because I was testing it when I made it. And the actual repository is now CakeFest 2021. So let's try that again. There we go. Now it's scanning again. And it should build. Here we go. The packages like we wanted to. So the Satis has a web interface. I install it locally on my local Windows machine. This is what it looks like. It has a packages.json, which will tell Composer which packages are available. At the moment, it's just this package with this plugin with one version. And once you keep developing, your versions will stack, and these lists will grow. It will also tell you which dependencies are listed in the plugins. So if you have more plugins internally, it will list the dependencies among them. So that's very convenient. Here we have a little hint that will tell you if you want to use Satis, add these lines to your composer.json file. So in order to use Satis, to get these packages, you have to add this to your composer file. So yeah, create a cron job or a scheduled task. So if you're on Windows, you should create a scheduled task or a cron job. If you're on Linux, do it every 5 minutes or every hour, depending on how often you want to release new plugins to keep running, keep publishing the new code. The last part of the demonstration is to distribute the plugin into a new CakePHP 4 app. And we can use Composer again to create a bare app. Very creative name, app 2. And within that app, I want to include the plugin I just created, the Composer way, and to rely on Composer to fulfill the dependencies that I've declared in the plugin. So we'll see in a second if that will work. Yay. So, like I said, you have to add repositories type the composer to your composer file. And now I should be able to require the plugin I just created through Composer. The yellow messages is an HTTPS message because I'm on a local machine. I don't have SSL on it. So here we go. And you see here, this is the plugin we just created. And this is the IDE helper that I've declared as a requirement. So it resolved it nicely and it installed it for me. And we're good to go. So we should load the plugin into our new app. This will add to the application. We can now run the good migrations to the database. We can add the one record to the database with a seed. After that, we should be able to run the command to see if it worked. And there you go, let them eat cake. We have a database entry through our plugin, and it worked. And because we declared the IDE helper as a dependency, it should be available for the project to be used. So let's test if that worked. We're going to run a command, and there you go. There was nothing to complete, but it gave an output. So it's there already. That's about wraps it up. Distributing the plugin.